before we get curious about what the future brings and then reflect about where we are now, I would actually love to invite you to do a small retrospective and to look back and then to synchronize and to get a common understanding how it all actually started. Because all the stories start with once upon a time at one particular time with something. And then we want to share the story of the civil society cluster with you today and actually start with it. And with that, I would love to invite on the stage Darius from International Alumni Center, who actually does not need an extra explanation and presentation. So Darius, the floor is yours and how it all started.
Thank you, Zoya. Thank you, Marisha. Thank you, Ruslan, for preparing the stage and really hosting this gathering with all. And hello to everybody. I mean, it's so great to see you all. I think I met nearly everybody on this long journey throughout the last years. And I'm not talking just about the last 3 years. Some of you I know by heart for a longer time. But let me start the story with the impulse and the core idea that brought us together. And this is, of course, the Bosch Foundation that is supporting individuals for over 40 years. And there is a strong belief with the Bosch Foundation that it's us, the individuals, being change makers and contributing to a positive change in this world. And this was in 2016 also the core idea to launch the IAC, and with this also the Bosch Alumni Network that consists of really many different programs of the Bosch Foundation, alumni coming from that. It's over 100 different programs. We got the information that could be around 10,000 people who were in contact with the Bosch Foundation. The funny thing was, but there were no addresses. Nobody knew how many people were there. But at the core, there was the strong belief that we should connect those people. We should connect us. We should connect the change makers on this planet, and to create something really new, to create a new entity, a new network, but also to create a new culture, and I would say a new relation that would go beyond the typical funder-grantee, funder-alumni relation, in a way that would help us to transform an alumni network into a typical one, into a network of change makers or partners of the Bosch Foundation. And how did we start in 2017? If I remember well, the first ideas were around a digital platform. It was very clear we have to see each other. We have to understand the potentials. And this was the moment where we, after checking the markets, we decided to create the Bosch Alumni Net platform with you. There were like a group of 50, 60 people. They helped us to create the platform. And we started first activities. And the first activities were really around identifying the energy in this whole network, identifying the drivers, potential drivers, identify those people around us who are really eager to do something together with the others, and to spark the fire within this entity. So the core architecture we started with was, let's bring the alumni groups together. Let's do and work regionally, so on a decentral structure, and let's create topical clusters. We started with a cluster that we called the media cluster, because there was a big group of journalists in the Bosch Alumni Network. So first the journalists, then the governance people. And at the end of this first month, it was very clearly that the third cluster will be the civil society cluster, where we understood there are so many people working around the topics of civil society as activists, as NGO members of different organizations. And we decided we want to bring them together. And this was the moment where we were not alone. We brought some people together and we created a first draft. What could be the aims of this civil society cluster? What could be the deep goals of what we are bringing together? And as you see here, at the very first moment, this was around the topic of knowledge exchange. It's this simple story that we are all starting to deliver answers to challenges globally, and we are all alone developing new ideas. What if we would bring us together, exchange in knowledge firstly, and secondly, start to experiment and learn together to exchange what we know in projects, in processes, to get into a really core learning environment together. And with this, to build capacity of all of us as actors of the civil society. With this, we might start bridging between the different communities around the globe, the different communities within the Bosch Alumni Network, and with this create a kind of network of organizations, network of change maker, network of people, and at the end, maybe create something that is really new and supportive for us, a resource that is really supporting us in our everyday work. From the beginning, we understood that especially within the civil society cluster, a participatory and learning governance should take place. And with this, it was very clearly for us that we can't launch and start the civil society cluster on our own. We need somebody who is embedded and working in the field and would do this together with us. And this was the moment where we invited Midost to host the cluster and to become really a friend and colleague of us. And at the end, to be honest, today, they are the host of the cluster. And we are in a way in the back supporting what they are doing. So with this, I would like to hand over Zoya back to you as one of the hosts of the civil society cluster today.
You now see the team of 3 people there. Back 2018, there was actually 1.5 person, but many people behind in the organization who started to shape the cluster. And it was around 800 people by the very beginning. I guess now we are double amount of people, 1,600 something plus. So this is a team of 3 of us who are now holding the cluster together. But back 2018, Mythos stepped in. And what is Mythos about? As Mythos is about people and about encounters. And the first thing which we then introduced and then developed together with Darius and his team, we said, hey, but let us invite the people who are part of this cluster and let us together explore what this cluster might be about. And with this idea, we brought together around 30 people in Berlin in June 2018, and then had this first reflection around, okay, but what is the status quo of the civil society cluster, of the civil society now? What is around us? What do we observe? What do we reflect? And we had those 5 key observations, which we discussed by that time. And this was around, for example, participation in the digital age. It was not the dimension which we have had now, but the topic was present already 2 years ago. We've been talking about de facto democracies, which arise around the globe in different sizes, in different constellations. We've been discussing with migration and the crises. We have been discussing the nomadic citizenship and people who are forced to leave their living places, or people who leave their living places because of new adventures and new journey, and about how the world actually becomes nomadic and what does it mean to be a citizen in a nomadic world. We've been talking about leadership in complex system, because in the complex world with interconnected challenges, how you basically still steer the processes, how you navigate. And then the last one, but not least, what role does the civil society play into that? How the civil society actors stepped in? Those have been the starting conversations, and then pretty fast we had the feeling actually we are getting to a community. And once having those qualities in our discussions, we said, okay, but what makes us together a cluster? And we came up with a manifesto, with a cluster manifesto. You can find the longer version in the mediathek of the cluster, but there is one important sentence which actually keeps me going with regard to the cluster is, we drive shoulder to shoulder towards a resilient, strong and inclusive civil society. I guess this is the sentence which actually accompanies us all the way and makes us actually also inspired hosts of the cluster. Once this meeting was over, and Darius was mentioning, it's not only about knowledge exchange, it's also about experiment and learn together. We pretty fast launched the first 5 pilots within the cluster, and we invited people who have been part of the kickoff meeting to submit their project ideas, but not to do it on their own, but to invite other people who are part of the cluster to experiment and to learn with them. You see here the names of projects. They are also on the Bosch Alumni platform in a longer version. And we also have, for example, Ildika or Mimis or Adriana, who joined us today and have been part of the project teams or leading the project teams. This was one of the actions, but we actually started also other parallel activities. And then there was one in Athens. It was Reflective Lab, and this was more about the common learning, coming together and learn together. So you also see here people who are members of the cluster working together in the frame of the Reflective Laboratory. We had an idea, okay, there are clusters as containers in the Bosch Alumni Network, but there is also many things happening between the clusters. And this is how we introduced the first cross-cluster meeting in Budapest to explore together actually what is out there in the different networks and what is out there in different clusters. And we had very fruitful conversations there.
Then in November 2019, we offered a capacity building training with the Civil Society Toolbox, and we had around 22 facilitators joining us from Portugal, Greece, Poland, Russia, Ukraine, Tunisia, and more. And all those facilitators learned how to work with the toolbox to develop their teams and organizations, and to help other teams and organizations to work on their internal structures and processes. And one of the results of this capacity building training was that we now have a pool of facilitators. We have around 20 facilitators. And I also see that some of them are in the room today. We have Marta, Victoria, Adriana, Iyes, Andrea, and some of the facilitators already started working with the toolbox. And actually they started working with other members of the network. And we currently have 7 teams and organizations who received organizational development grants to work with the facilitators on a capacity building need. Then in March this year, there was a disturbing moment. And actually, we somehow needed to realize that our former reality pretty much turned upside down, and that we all needed to face a new reality with the outbreak of COVID-19. And this was the moment where we realized it needs an emergent design and needs a discussion about what is our stake in the new reality. So what we did is that we hosted a series of online conversations. So 3 online conversations where we connected around 120 members. And the idea was really to get into the knowledge exchange, to get connected, to understand what is happening with us, to understand what do we need and what does it mean for the future for civil society. So we were looking for finding common solutions. And that was the first learning. And the next learning was that we realized as hosts that was the first time when we virtually hosted a community in a synchronous way. And the knowledge we learned, we wanted to share. And what we did is that we developed a recipe for community calls to also encourage other members to host communities virtually.
But this was not the only one learning throughout those 2 years. There are more lessons learned. We would like to share some of them with you. We just realized on the way that there is no one-size-fits-all host profile on the Bosch Alumni Network. So basically, we needed to figure out how we position ourselves and how we behave ourselves. It took us some time until we arrived to this host role. And then we actually, at the end of the day, just behaved as we organization do in other contexts. We see ourselves as convener, as bridge builder. And I guess this is part of the identity which we also took to the network. Again, we realized it's more fun and more efficient to host big communities if you are not one person but a team, and that's why there are 3 of us doing this now.
And what we also developed is a very human-centered approach, because we realized that actually for us, people are in the focus and formats are the support mechanisms. And what is very connected to that is that we want to create spaces for collective learning, because there's a lot of hidden potential just bringing members together. That creates a lot of impact already. And I was just speaking to it already. We realized it needs a combination of action plan. So we need defined purposes and activities, but we also need space for emergent design. Then hosting a community virtually is happening in a synchronous way and in an asynchronous way. So having meetings like today in a synchronous way, but also hosting the community on the Bosch Alumni Network platform. And last but not least, and that's something we want to focus with you today, is on the co-shaping. So to really integrate more members into shaping the future of this cluster. And these were our learnings. And there's, of course, more also from the IAC.
Thanks, Marisha. We were in a strange situation. In a way, we were in and out at the same time, because handing over to the colleagues from Mid-Ost, the hosting of the civil society cluster brought us into this perspective of being in midst and at the same time observing. And I can say, I mean, at the very beginning, I was joining all the meetings. I was part of the discussion group. I could contribute with my ideas, and then more and more I stepped out. And what stayed as a fundament of this journey together with Mid-Ost is the trust, shared purpose, and clarity of roles and responsibilities. I think we started with the two first, and the third we knew in a way, but we should be honest. I mean, this was a journey for us also to clarify the roles of a 1.5 year. It was new, and it took time, and that might be the same for you in new journeys, that clarifying the roles takes time. The second, the ongoing communication and the learning together. This is something that was very fruitful, because we took the learnings from this cluster, and now we can support our colleagues that will start and launch this social innovation cluster. We can support them with all the learnings, and it's even not us, but Mid-Ost and the colleagues from Changemaker Exchange are connected, and doing this together in a way. And so this is very helpful. And there is a very relevant attitude. We started, at least, or maybe I personally started with, it's curiosity. It's really this being open towards the serendipity moments that are coming, and they, something sometimes overwhelming, something, being open to what's happening. And I don't know if we could do this in all the moments, but being generous to what you are contributing, because you're spending time, you are bringing so much energy into this common endeavor, and to value this is sometimes not easy, being so far away, and with Corona and COVID being also, really not able to see and to talk to you personally. But this seems for me really, really relevant. Then we had some questions that we are still keeping as an ambition maybe for us. And this is maybe something I would like to share with you, because this is maybe something to, to shape the civil society cluster also in the future. We still do not know really how to connect the short-term projects with the long-term, I would call it systemic change. So how can we design something where you have short interventions, and these short interventions are part of a bigger change? Maybe organizational development of community, development and changes within the complex systems around us. One. Second, how can we connect the local solutions we are developing with these global challenges? The local solutions are always context bound, but in a way, in each of those solutions, there's something that is transferable. And how can we work with this local solution and connect this with the global challenges at the same time? And a third question that I'm holding, at least, what are the building blocks for communities of practice? So what does communities of practice, like the civil society cluster we all are, what do we need to be, well, alive, to be eager to learn, and to make this networks and communities really fruitful and a strong resource for our work? And just give me 1 more minute to share with you our directions for 21. We just agreed this with the Bosch Foundation. So it's 5 key moments we want to strengthen. One is we want to strengthen the ownership. So you will see us handing over responsibilities from Berlin, from the coordination team to you, the members. We will try to do our best to hand the responsibilities over. We will start to strengthen a growing from within. The programs of the Bosch Foundation are coming to an end. We are right now with 7,000 people. There will be not a flow in of new people, but there are so many people inside the network. We want to connect them. We want to activate those people. We want to give them chance to become part of this network in an active form. We want to overcome barriers, geographic, language, and connect people across those barriers. For us, collaboration is key. We see this network as one network that really connects in a diversity, in a strong heterogeneous structure. And we want to cross sector. We want to cross language. We want to international, whatever collaboration, because we strongly believe that this overarching and bridging between sectors is one of the ways to create innovations and solutions for today's problems. And we want to strengthen the impact orientations. And for this, we will start to concentrate on what we call impact fields. So the clusters will stay as a container, but within those clusters, we want to connect people who are working on specific topics. This is what we call impact fields. And this could also be one way within the civil society cluster to become more specific on some topics that are urgent. We heard already today, like the shrinking spaces of civil society. There could be others. This would be exactly also in line with our thoughts. So hope to stay together in 21 and beyond, and wishing you all the best for the next hours, weeks, and especially also for the future after COVID-19. Thank you.
And now we're actually all here together in the first biennial Civil Society Cluster Meetup. And we are happy to be with all of you here today to understand what happened with us in the last 2 years and around us, and what do we need in the future. With the help of Ulacha, thank you so much, Ulacha, that was amazing. We looked at what happened in the cluster, activities, conversations, encounters, what kind of learnings. But of course, there were also big shifts around us happening, which affect us and define what kind of support we need in the future.